Good morning. Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today we gather with the intent followed by the Living Peace and Friendship Treaties with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. We are all treaty people. I now call this monthly morning town council meeting to order. It is September 9th, 2025. And would my father be alive today, he would be 107 years old. So, and he sat in his seat many years ago, as well as I do. So I feel his presence. So I will take an approval of the agenda. And the errors and omissions, please. So moved, Councillor Carver, and second by Councillor Twano. I don't see any nameplates out here, people. I do know your names, but when I'm speaking quickly, it's nice for me to be able to have a quick. Okay, thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed?
Right.
Okay, the motion is carried. I have to get used to the delay from Councillor Kingsmill.
Sorry, I will speak up. I'll speak up more.
Okay,
Councillor
you.
Carver's camera. There you go. There
all
we
right.
are.
Thank you for that. We'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes. We have two. The special council meeting, July 3rd, 2025. Were there any errors or omissions?
Mayor, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, for the July 3rd?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Feeney. Second by Councillor Wilson. Councillor Carver.
Just a point of procedure, if there are no errors or omissions, can we not just accept them as circulated without a motion? Have we not agreed to do that as?
We can, we did, I don't know if we decided to do that or not, but where there's two, I think I have to ask for each one separately though. Anyway, do I know?
Yeah, so for each one, if there's no errors or omissions, you can say it's just accepted.
Okay.
Without a motion,
Okay.
but you do have to do them separately. You're right.
Okay, so it's accepted. Okay. So we'll go on to 2.2, which is the regular council meeting of August 15th, 2025. Are there any errors or omissions? Being none, I will accept the minutes. Thank you. That's a nice shortcut, Councillor Carver. Announcements by council members. Councillor Twano.
I do have an announcement. So at the Tiny Tots playground, the town is going to be putting in a gate fence for additional safety for, all the additional traffic. It's been going. So yay.
Great.
Yay,
Yeah.
Yay.
Good.
And thank you to our public works for getting that done in a timely fashion. Because
Not on yet though. But
I frequent that playground quite often and I'll feel safer.
Yeah.
Or my grandchildren will be safe that I don't run up. Sure. Okay, thank you. Are there any other announcements by any councillors? I just wanted to say that I was part of the back to school haircut program that took place on August 26th. This is our 4th year doing it and it keeps getting bigger and better. The Social Public Libraries joined us this year with a free food, free clothing exchange, and also had period products there to give away to adults and children, students. The Mahone Bay Food Bank provided snacks for lunch boxes and some backpacks, and Trinity United Church, who is the host with School Plus, provided. We had a barber and 2 hairstylists, and we cut many heads of hair, and it was a really good day, full day. So lots of partnerships as it grows with other members of the community, and it is a well-needed program. So we're happy to do it every year. And I also wanted to mention that there was the 100th anniversary of the Fisherman's Memorial in Lunenburg. I attended and joined in on the parade and the blessing of the fleet and the ceremonies. It was a wonderful day. It's always a special day, but being the 100th anniversary, they followed the ceremony with a mug up in the tent, and there were wonderful stories, very heartfelt, a very heartfelt program. So we had our community police officer was present. So he always is a friendly face to see in the crowd in his red serge, and one of his friends, Ted, they both did the bike rally in the spring up at Bayview School. So it's always nice to see them participating in the community and stuff. Oh. I will move on with the public input session. There's no members of the public wanting to, okay? And there are no presentations. Okay, well, we'll go into correspondences. We have 5 correspondences. Is there any discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Council Carver, sorry.
In relation to 6.1, the request from Tiffany Dubois, who indicates that she lives outside the town boundaries, has asked for council to consider the possibility of closing Pleasant Street during the evening of Halloween for the purposes of ensuring safety for children. I think I'd like council to consider that possibility, but I recognize that there are quite a few moving parts in terms of what happens in other parts of town. Is there an option to designate one street in town as being the street for collecting treats? So I'm just wondering if staff have some advice on how we might approach this.
Oh, Sam?
So in terms of like a more coordinated effort to designate an area, I think it's probably already a bit late to try for this year. It may be something we could look at in terms of just the, because you really need people's buy-in from the community as well. In terms of just the like traffic safety issue, it actually, like, I don't think it is difficult to close down certain streets to local traffic only, but it's overnight. So whether that makes a difference, whether having a barricade up at each end of a pedestrian, like a, quiet residential street, saying local traffic only, but not having to be manned, which is easy to do, makes any difference. Having people out trying to control traffic, I would suggest that would require a coordinated volunteer effort as opposed to just the town. Like that's the reindeer rally, that type of an event where they have wardens who are, the town traffic plan, but there'd be some people at the corners. I think as part of a more coordinated, like designated area for trick or treating, you might want to take that kind of approach, because we always used to, I don't know if there's still an organization that does, parents would go around to like the school and public facilities a little bit just to check on things on the night of Halloween.
We used to have citizens control.
You could
Many
take that kind of approach to traffic control as well, and have a few volunteers. And then suppose if people were concentrating the activity of trick or treating in a neighborhood, other people in other parts of town might come and help out, with the volunteer duty. So, bigger picture, there's lots of communities doing that. In terms of unmanned closure of the street, the barricades could be put out and we could advertise it as a closure. Whether it makes a difference, I don't know if it'll make a difference. Pleasant Street has alternative routing. If there's a sign that says local traffic, people don't have to take Pleasant Street. You can take Faubourg, we could put a detour sign on. But those are all unmanned, I guess is the thing. I wouldn't expect staff to be manning these things over through the evening.
And I don't know if the police couldn't dedicate someone to be just in one place all night. They need to be mobile for emergency.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happens.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
Well, it's sounds as though it can't happen this year, and therefore more thought can be put into what could be done. it could be, for example, a circuitry thing, which includes Maple Street and a ring around area rather than condensing into one particular part of Pleasant Street, actually. But yes, I'm obviously open to it, but we've got a bit more time by the sounds of it to be able to think it through a little bit better and organize it a bit better.
If it's about communicating with residents and how to sort of start or if to start that conversation, maybe this should go to communications committee as a referral.
Yeah.
Because the bigger question of how to engage the community, that stands out to me as the first necessary step. Are people even interested? This letter didn't come from
A
a
town
person
person.
living on Pleasant.
Right. Right, okay.
Well, with just following up on that suggestion, I would move then that we refer this question to the Policy and Strategy Committee for discussion, for consideration for implementing some measures next year. Not this year.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Feeney. Okay, all those in favor?
Did I say policy and strategy? I meant,
Yeah.
I meant communications.
Communication?
Sorry.
Okay, are you in agreement with that change, Councillor Feeney?
Sure, but I'm not gonna have the chance to weigh in on the topic at that committee, but so I was thinking that we might be able to have a brief but fulsome conversation at the other meeting where we're all council can participate. What are your thoughts?
I'm happy to leave it at policy and strategy and then bump it along.
Yeah, functionally comms is a
There's
little
lots
bit of
of
a
time.
subcommittee
Yeah.
of policy and strategy, so you can always refer
Yeah,
it from
there's
there.
lots of time.
So the motion as originally made stands then to refer to policy and strategy.
Great, so we're gonna refer to policy and strategy. Ready for the question? All those in favor, signify aye, opposed?
Yes,
Nay? The motion is carried, thank you.
Mayor, I just had one query on item 6.4.
Yeah,
I was hoping to see if we could just refresh our memories on the cadence. So this is the second letter on the topic received from Wagner Law on behalf of their client. And we have had a formal response. I'm just wondering if you can refresh our memory on the cadence of when our response was returned to the Wagner Law client. And I'm suggesting, did they cross in the mail? Because it was my impression that the letter that was forwarded from the town on this topic was very comprehensive, balanced, and I thought would have ended the back and forth. So I was a little bit surprised to see this letter, but maybe you could just share with us the timing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you're not wrong that this letter reads as if it was sent without having received the letter that we sent, but they did confirm receipt of the letter that was sent.
Okay.
So this essentially re-articulates a lot of things. To be fair, we didn't necessarily engage or feel it necessary to engage in some of the substance of correcting things that are incorrect in this letter. And I don't think there's any requirement for us to do so. But they have this time restated and with a timeline, although our lawyer already told them this wouldn't be acknowledged until council today, so that timeline would not be expected. So I would not, they have no reason to expect us to provide any different response than we did last time, which is to say, here are 3 public statements on the record, and we don't feel that there's anything wrong with them.
And finally, and I'd agree with that wholeheartedly, is the town's formal correspondence in the public domain? Or as per our normal process, we would just share it directly with the.
Yeah, it wasn't put on the record.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Dylan.
Councillor Copeland?
On that same question, some of the claims in the letter don't seem to jive with what we understand, at least what I understand. Has there been any documentation of any of the claims that are made in the letter?
You mean, have we gone on the record refuting claims that are made in the letter?
No, have we been advised of what the substance and the source of the claims?
Nothing's ever been confirmed.
Well,
We've talked about this lots of times, and this may be a referral to closed session, but like I already referenced that there are direct falsehoods in this letter.
yes.
Whether we need to refute them or not, you're all informed and can be further informed in closed session if you feel that's necessary.
The Council Carver had her hand up before that.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to clarify whether it's always our practice in relation to Councillor Feely's question about our response to the first letter from Wagner. We did send a response, and is it possible for that to be in the public domain, or is that private correspondence?
Oh, it is possible. It's just that council only puts those on when we have by direction, put it on the agenda to have a response letter. So typically like a letter comes to one meeting and then a response letter from us is put on the agenda for the next meeting. And that's just a way of disclosing our response. And we didn't do that in this case. So if anybody were interested, it's not that the letter would necessarily be covered by protection from protection of privacy. It's just that we haven't put it on the record by putting it on a council agenda. So you could say, for example, if there's direction to respond to this one, that response then be added to the agenda for the September 25th meeting to put it on the record. I hope that helps.
Thank you. I would like to move that response be placed on the agenda for the late September council meeting.
No, second.
Second by Councillor Farnell. Okay. Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say before is still appropriate, I think, and that is that this gives us an opportunity to just be absolute minimalist in our response. Just say, thank you, we've got your letter. We've already replied to the former letter, which is essentially the same, yours truly.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion?
And just for clarity, so to Councillor Wilson's point, is the motion to respond and that the response be placed on the agenda for the 25th? So we're actually waiting till the 25th to send the response? Or is the motion that the draft response letter be on the agenda for the 25th? Just so I know, because we could send the letter and still put it on the public record later.
Yeah, my thinking had been that the original letter, our reply to the original letter, be made public
Okay,
by putting it on the agenda, in the agenda package of the end of September meeting. But I gathered from Councillor Wilson's comment that it might help also to include our reply.
to this one.
Yeah.
So that the
With the
response,
attachment.
the staff would respond and then
Yeah.
both responses be placed on the agenda for the 25th.
Thanks.
Okay, if that's good with everybody, I think that's more clear and it makes sense with both of us.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor signify aye.
Yes,
Opposed? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you all. Yes, Councillor Falconer.
There is, well, there is a couple of letters from non-residents of the town. One relates to the fishing dock, and I have no difficulty with understanding why we do not want fishing off the boating dock. It does refer, though, to the new dock, which is not apparently accessible. In that somebody in a wheelchair cannot cast because it's fenced all the way around. And I looked at it yesterday, and that is so. So I understand that there was some talk originally, and before I was on council, that the design would have features that would allow it to be accessible.
So, and that has been a
Yes.
goal, so like the ramp considerations and everything, we're all done with accessibility in mind. The railing is considered a necessary safety feature and also prevents boats tying up. But we did have a conversation about, having a lower rail because children also would benefit from that. And what was proposed by the folks who manufactured it, Mel and Kelly here, was to build that riser for kids. And I think that's worked well for kids. But of course, it doesn't allow for a wheelchair to come up onto it. So I do think the same thing will be the response is, well, let's look at a way to make the riser more accessible or add an accessible riser versus to lower the railings.
Yeah.
But I certainly think I was going to suggest, if no one else picked up on it, the council could direct staff to look at a solution to the wheelchair accessibility of the fishing dock. And to take that, and I would just say to take action, don't necessarily need to come back to council, but Yeah, if you want to make a motion on that, Brian, I think it would be a good idea to pick up on that.
Well, I'm picking up on what I understand was the original intention anyway, so I'm not sure a motion is necessary, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'll follow it up. It's just to show responsiveness to the concern that was raised, but I'll follow it up either way, whether that's.
Okay, as far as that goes, we're on record here to having discussed it. But as to the various pieces of correspondence, particularly the first two, and of course we've got another one later on, we will be responding, will we, through communications to this correspondence?
We don't have an automatic like response to the substance of communication. So if we're responding at all, this has been placed on the agenda for the council meeting September 9th. We're not saying anything about, we've talked to Glendon, I'm sure several of us have talked to him before. We're not saying anything about the substance of the public wharf in a letter. If council wants us to go into that, I'm happy to do it, but we should be.
I was speaking more generally. We have more than one piece of correspondence, including the Pleasant Street one, at least acknowledging that that it's been received. So the letter.
It's always acknowledged and are told when it'll appear on the agenda.
Okay, fine.
Like with the one about the referral of the Pleasant Street suggestion, like we wouldn't normally write that person back. Maybe since it's been referred to a committee, maybe we can send a quick, was it an email? It came in by email. Would you mind sending an email just to say, we're going to look into this?
Yeah.
Because that's a little bit unusual. We did take an action other than receive and file. If we just receive and file, we're not typically writing people custom responses.
But not for this year.
Right.
Yeah, we should be clear on
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Toronto?
So in the letter that was sent in about the fishing dock, not accessible, there were other issues where they said that the fish don't go there because it's not deep enough, and that the marina, the
Yeah, the
marina,
location was always kind of known not to be
Okay.
ideal,
Yeah.
in terms of that.
but also that the marina staff are, harassing the people that are on the fishing dock. But they are being instructed to, tell people to go to the fishing dock, so.
Just for
Sorry.
clarity, no, I just want to help. So this, the quote unquote harassment is about fishing, not on the fishing dock.
Yeah.
So definitely the fishing on the fishing dock.
No, yes, they're quite happy with
But
that.
there are posted signs saying no fishing on the other floating docks, and
Yes.
they do enforce those signs, and that's what this complaint is about.
Yes, but they are being instructed by the marina to do that because they are, moving people.
Oh,
back
no, it's a
from
genuine
their-
hazard.
Right, but there's a safety issue too for people fishing off of that dock because they are using it to move people. I'm just trying to, it's not their fault or,
It's not the marina staff's fault.
yes.
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
saying,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, and we've been over this a lot of times with this person, but other people, that the town actually encourages the marina to put up the signs and enforce the signs because it's a genuine safety concern.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, we've created a safe area.
Mhm.
It is known not to be as ideal for fishing. It's a compromise. There are a lot of other places to go for more ideal fishing in the first place, but thank you. Maybe I stepped on your point.
no.
I'm just so used to saying that the marina staff we're in regular contact with them, and they're actually just doing what they need to do and what the town has empowered them to do, and this letter does say a lot of things that are not true about the current situation with respect to whose taxes are paying for the wharf or anything else. But we didn't think we'd get into all that in terms of response, and I know he's received response before.
Yes, Councillor Dean.
Mary, I guess the salient point, and I think that CAO hit it, was the fishing wharf was a compromise. Trying to take into consideration a number of factors. And it took us a while to get it built, and it was I think successfully implemented this year. But there's growing pains, and if there's design improvements that can be made to the fishing wharf or dock, whatever we're using for our official language here, I think we should investigate it, and if upgrades and improvements can be made to make it more functional for all of the users, we should do that. So we've already invested significant funds in providing the dock, but if it's going to take a little bit more to make it even better, like I'm all for that, so that next season some of these issues that we talked about earlier in the meeting can be addressed. So as far as directing staff to, collate all of the feedback that they're receiving and find out if the builder can make those upgrades. Like, I think that would be an appropriation that the council would be wide open for sometime in the budget process next year.
And it's more likely that, I'm sorry to jump on, but more likely that if I talk to Melvin Kelly and if they think they have a way to add wheelchair access for a riser, they'll probably get down and do it within a week.
Yeah.
Without really any substantial cost. I mean, they've been very quick and, to your point, to respond to other things when the children issue was raised. I want to give credit, like Melvin Kelly were down there within a week, addressing that, putting to the riser. It came back that it could be a little bigger. They came back and further improved it. So they've been very responsive. I just want to give credit to this installer. They've been very responsive whenever we've raised possible improvement. So I'll talk to them about this, and I expect they will have a suggestion.
So I think just by way of formality, I'd move that council direct staff to seek feedback on the design of the fishing dock and report back to council with their findings and any recommendations for upgrades for season 2020, summer of 2026.
Okay, I thought Councillor Buckland had started a motion that wasn't seconded yet, correct? Or,
I'd queried where it's necessary to
Oh,
have
yes.
a motion, given that all this is implementation of what was originally intended.
okay, so,
Yeah, I guess to Joe's point, I'd go a little further. If this motion passed, I would go and like maybe put up a little thing saying any feedback, let us know.
Yeah.
Or put something in the newsletter saying any
Okay.
feedback, let
Okay.
us know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a more, if you want to do that, that's more of a thing you can.
Well, that's right, and it gets on our agenda.
You wouldn't have been doing anyway. So if you want to.
okay, all right, so we'll take Councillor Feeney's
If you-
motion.
if you don't
All
mind.
right, I just didn't want to overlook what you had wanted to do. Councillor,
Second
and
that
you'll
motion.
second that motion, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Any more discussion? No, okay, calling for, all those in favor signify aye.
Yes,
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried, Councillor.
I was gonna say, and finally, 6.5.
Yes.
Yes.
At least 6.5, yeah.
I think it's in order to move that we approve the request for the use of Jubilee Park for the festivals.
Seconded by Councillor Paul. Councillor Carr.
I have a question about the procedure for this kind of request. Because recently another group, a different group, approached me individually, asking me for how to do exactly the same thing, how to book time on a town-owned property. So I sent an email to a member of staff and asked for advice and was given the people to contact, and which I passed along. So is there a preferable method for making this kind of request? Should it come to council package, or should it come as a direct telephone or email contact
I think
to a
it's,
designated person?
it's a good question.
Yes.
Because essentially there's a couple of different things happening. On one hand, we do have a public events, mass gatherings bylaw. So there are certain requirements to go through that process to get, confirmation from the town about a big event, wherever it is, and if it's on town property. And then there's also some town properties don't have a booking system. So if you're booking a town property that has a way to be booked, like the ball field, for a big event, you'd be going through that process and also going through the public or mass events process. But if you're looking to book a property that doesn't have the option to be booked already as a standard thing, like the bandstand or the ball field would have, then this is kind of the going to council. So we need to establish that you could select Jubilee Park essentially the same way you would the ball field or the bandstand. I would think if it was something that was going to be handled just at the staff level. Kelly, do you mind? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit to refresh my memory around we just talked about the mass gatherings requirement. So I think you had told Karen she had to put this through the council agenda.
It's, they're a little behind in the process of applying for things, and last year that was the process. I'm not normally the person who handles these, but I'm the one in the seat right now, so we went with the same process we went with last year, when it was handled by a different staff member. But I think you're right. I think it's because there's no specific booking, and maybe that's a policy thing we need to look at, and adding Jubilee park in as a potential place to book and having a calendar set up.
Yeah, because it also makes it easier for insurance. And we just got another request like this, and the first question we had for these people was, we're going to need insurance.
Mhm.
Which, if we were going through the booking form, like it's the first thing on the form, is like you gotta provide
Right.
your insurance. And so without that form, in the case of Jubilee, the second question will be, of course, do we have to have insurance? So it would be, simpler. I don't know if there's anywhere where we say which facilities, or like by policy or by law, which facilities are available for rent. That's casting my mind over that. I think I'm gonna have to look.
Either
at whether
for rent
we-
or you, booking. for
Yeah,
you.
like if we established that there were only three and that they had a certain system, or notionally could staff just create a booking form for a different property? Could we have one for the aquatic gardens, Jubilee Park, Tiny Tot? I suppose so.
So I have two comments. One is that I really appreciate the suggestion about somehow formalizing it in policy. And I've also want assurance that the query that I sent about the particular group that wanted to book the top lot is being addressed.
We could, I don't know who you sent it to, so I can't.
We were talking to at least one other party. Perhaps that's the same
If
one.
you don't want to say who it is, we can talk about it after.
Yeah.
We can talk about it after, yeah. In the facility booking policy, it's the ball field, the dance.
Okay, so we have to add other items, so that's easy, so we could put that on a policy and strategy agenda, yet another thing for a policy strategy agenda. But just to review the list, so that if staff are gonna add more places to the list, I guess there is an easy way to do that.
People have booked the bandstand for weddings and photos, like grad photos and.
Well, bandstand is one of the bookable
Okay.
things, but other people have asked to book Tiny Tots, especially the covered structure for birthdays and stuff. Yeah,
So.
you just have to say, like, you can't prohibit public access to the park just because you're booking it, stuff like that. We just have slightly nuanced rules for each thing.
But I think most people just picnic
They
there.
just show up there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
but people ask if they can book it because they also wanna be polite, like they don't wanna push other people out, they wanna be,
Council Fee.
Mayor, just to finalize that point, the council has provided some kind of public enthusiasm about our interest in supporting short-term public art installations as well. And I think it would be good for us to have, dovetail with this process on the policy, make sure that, other areas that aren't necessarily parks, but are high-profile town-owned properties might also be included in the bylaw or in the policy.
Mhm. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Are we ready for the question? Yes, yes. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Yes,
Would it be appropriate to have a motion at this point to refer the question of the list of rentable or bookable properties to policy and strategy?
would you like to make
I think
that motion?
Well, I can take off the question part of the premise.
Okay, okay, would someone like to second that motion? Alderman had a hand up first.
Okay,
Okay, quick draw McGraw. We will, any further discussion? No? All right. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The motion is carried. All right. That would be interesting to hear. Okay, we're moving on to items.
Does anyone wanna receive and file 6.3?
Oh,
I mean, it was the only one that.
sorry, 6.3.
I mean,
Three.
it's the only one that didn't get a specific response.
Motion to receive and file.
Thank you, Counselor Wilson. Is there a seconder? Counselor Connor? do you
Yeah,
want to
sure.
second that? Okay, thank you. All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Staff report. 7.1, staff report to council. Let's see. Are there any? Just trying to click on mine. Okay. We have a lot of things that were completed over the summer, I see. Any other, Councillor Copeland?
Yeah, the first item is preparing a report on RELC's request to provide terms and proposals for new electrical commission. It's been on the books for a long period of time now. Would it be correct to say that the holdup is that we are not getting any requests for requests for a new electrical commission at this point?
CEO?
Yeah, I wouldn't, I mean, the reason it's on the list, I guess we discussed last meeting, it's really on our end. These are letters that were received last October, so. But to your point, there have been developments since, and council has been watching and kind of determining whether the correspondence of last October is as relevant now as it was then.
Exactly.
So yeah, there is some rationale for holding off. I did think that we would be getting back to this by the end of the month, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to discuss further as we said we would do when we talked about it last month.
Thank you.
Right? Any other?
I just wanted to note with respect to number 3 on here that the tender for the renovation of the washrooms on Main Street should go out this week. And we are still planning to be on track to close those washrooms when the marina would be closing after Thanksgiving and start the renovations immediately thereafter.
Aaron, that mayor, I'd move that we accept the staff report to council for information.
Thank you, Councillor Feeney. Is there a seconder? And Councillor Carver, thank you. Any further questions? Being none, all those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 7.2, quarterly statistical report. The Q1.
And I guess I just want to preface this, the first time we're trying this new format, we've simplified things to be more accessible. They're far less colorful and busy, and hopefully that makes it easier for people to see. But I'd love to get feedback, which can also be offline, about, you know, other information you'd like to see or the way it's being presented. So the point of putting these stats out there is for council and public information. So we'll continue to, this is sort of a living report document format. We'll keep trying to improve, but I do think that it's good to have these reports in as accessible as possible. So I hope it's improved.
Councillor Carter?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciated the format. It's very simple and clear. But I did have a question about the policing services. There are numbers for 2023, 2024 as complete years. And then the numbers for 2025, of which it's only a partial year, is way bigger than either of the 2 previous years.
Yeah, I think that is probably just an error in the way this report came together, because the police statistics reporting for each year, the last quarter we have is the prior fiscal, so it would have been to April 1, like that's the last one we have to the end of March. So to have it labeled as 2025 is probably an error. It should probably be 2022, 23, and 24. The year ending March 31st, 2025 was 2024. These are 3 full years, is my point. It's just that they probably should have said 2024. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fiscal year.
Could we put that in?
Yes, yeah, that's
That would help.
as at March 31st. And one of the other ones down actually is done that way, so that maybe that'll, yeah.
Mhm.
And
And
we'll put a new section in there. It'll be like stolen cars, 1919 through 2024, 0. 2025, 1.
excuse me, I had my car stolen from my drive.
Small, yeah, I mean, there could be more notes here in terms of what the nature of the occurrence
Yeah.
is, but it's quite arbitrary to decide what is a quote unquote significant occurrence, so. Yes, it does look like a lot, 386, they're mostly like rolling stops.
Mhm.
Yes, Councillor Carter?
Thank you. Under the number 7, development services, I wondered, as well as the number of permits, they could indicate the number of units, mainly dwelling units. Is that possible?
So we do have the number of, yeah, that's interesting. I think they probably can with development permits. With the building permits, what I've been pushing for is the value, because that's what they track.
Yeah.
But with the development permits, they probably track if it is adding a dwelling,
Mhm.
if it's adding a dwelling. So it's sort of like the way they say lots added under subdivisions, if there's dwellings added through the development permits, a lot of them are just like a deck or shed or, but there'd be some new dwellings added, so we can probably get that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Councillor Wilson, is your hand up?
Yes, I'm interested in the solar garden production. It seems that we were concerned at the end of 2024 that the productivity of that installation was less than the design. But if our Q1 numbers are almost 50% of the total for 2024, it sounds like we're back.
Yeah, it is, it's hard to tell, like, we have month by month stats on it, and when you look at them, and they're not included in here. But when you look at the month by month stats on it, I would say we're, the better than expected months this summer, which there have been a couple of, are always the big months. So we tend to do, the majority of the solar production in the summer months.
Sure.
If that outweighs, I think, lower than expected, last winter was quite low in the winter months with the cloud cover and everything. So it kind of comes down to the summer's been good. We're probably better positioned to perform for the year than this time last year. But, it'll depend on the fall, winter weather.
Yeah, but I mean, this data is Q1 is April, May, June.
Yeah.
Which is typically fairly miserable.
And certainly July and August have exceeded the prior year now that I have them. And I think August is the best month on record.
Yeah.
So it's looking good, but I guess a little early to say for sure if we're gonna outperform last year. I certainly hope so.
Okay. Any other, was that a half hand
Well,
up?
it is.
Okay, Councillor Carter.
So it's about number 8, the water utility, and am I right in feeling optimistic that we are getting on top of the water leakage?
Well, I mean, Scott would obviously like you to see the note because the actual numbers there, that's not an improvement. With the fixes that they've been able to accomplish, if you take that liters per day and work it out, he's generally feeling that comparable quarters in the fall and winter will look better than they did last year. But yeah, I mean, there's no miracles happening. Even when they find leaks this large, it seems like there's a couple new ones every winter, every spring that we end up chasing into the summer, and by the fall they're all fixed, and then it's sort of the same pattern we keep following. So I'm not sure I think that the system for catching the leaks is quite in place now and works well. But in terms of overall improvement, the age of the distribution system continues to confound.
I was gonna say, judging from some of the junk we've been digging up in the last couple of months, it's no good surprise that things leak.
Yeah, and I think that we won't get below 40% unaccounted. But that's still a bit of an improvement, and as long as we're hitting every leak as it surfaces, we shouldn't get too much worse.
So I'm just wondering how this issue gets addressed at the asset management committee. And whether there is a plan of a sequence of, or are leaks just getting identified as they happen at the last moment. I'm sorry, this is a bit inarticulate, but because this issue has been around such a long time.
It might be helpful to go back through the history a little bit. I'm happy to. So, when I came on in the last few years, we did get an outside consultant to come in and develop a leak detection program. And so the program is essentially, through the year, a series of step tests of listening at defined times. So we have a contractor come in to do the listening, and we do the step test overnight, closing different valves, and essentially have been able to determine leaks, pretty accurately within the quarter. Like that's about, if a new leak occurs within 90 days, we've probably become aware of it, and within the following 90 days, it's probably been addressed. These are leaks that are on unmetered parts of the system. That's why they're quite difficult. This summer, we've been more able to catch leaks by spotting greenery. Because generally speaking, if things are growing in a drought, there's water coming from somewhere, so that's actually been helpful. There was a big leak on the Cherry Lane property that is been addressed, so that was a big thing. So yeah, I think, we do have a good annual program. The annual program is pretty much as well tested as it could be, but we're just gonna keep catching new leaks every quarter. I mean, these are new issues that keep coming up based on the age of the
So
system.
it's sort of a combination of proactive and reactive. Would that be?
Yeah, the really proactive thing is just replacing the century-old lines, but we are proactively catching the issues as they arise, and that is reactive, but it's about as good as we can do. And to be fair, anybody watching, council has applied for funding to deal with, about 50% of the main distribution infrastructure on Main Street. We may or may not be successful. We've obtained some, but not enough. And, we'll keep looking for more opportunities, but it's an incredible amount of aged infrastructure that has to be dealt with.
Councillor Kaufman?
An interesting statistic and potentially useful might be the traffic volume as opposed to just speed that goes through the town. I believe in one of the studies it's peaked at around 4,000 vehicles a month, which is a pretty hefty number. This year, obviously, it's going to be completely lost because of all the diversions and what have you. But it would be a good number to have in this statistical list.
The volumes, not just the speeds.
Yeah, just include the volumes.
Okay, Councillor Feeney, did you have?
No,
something?
fine, I think.
Okay, all right. Oh, Councillor Torno.
So for the bottom portion where it talks about our policy bylaw developments. They're not in order of importance, right?
They're not supposed to be.
Okay,
But we only assign dates to the ones that have those anticipated dates, those 6 of them. That was that policy and strategy. And then we've kind of noted where subsequent events have possibly changed the priority.
okay,
So, we've got that note on film policy that while it was supposed to be June, it was deferred because it was seen to fit better later in the year. And likewise, we've stepped up the priority of reserves policy, even though it wasn't listed with the 6 that we were gonna do in policy and strategy, but that's because it's gonna go to audit and finance.
Okay.
So if there's anything you don't see as on here,
right,
that's certainly worth mentioning. But if you see something on here and you wonder, maybe it's not a top priority, records management policy, for example, we're just kind of flagging them.
no, I was just wondering why the reserves policy was kind of in the middle.
Yeah, that's why.
Well, it's already in action.
Yeah.
We've met 3 times.
I think the fact
We
that the
need a
dates
4th
are
time.
associated with policy and
Yeah.
strategy that's the reason.
So
why there's a date on
That is in progress, so that should be changed to in progress.
Yes, I mean, I prioritized for fall. I didn't mean to say it wasn't on schedule. We just.
I
didn't
had
set a schedule.
prioritized for
We didn't set a
summer.
schedule, so I can't say it's schedule.
It was
Yeah.
one of the very active committees
Yes,
during the
certainly,
summer.
yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, anybody who's wondering, it's
Participation.
certainly on the go.
Yes.
And, of course, as these policies and bylaws, when they come up, they'll come through council. They won't get, just if anybody's watching, these won't get approved at committee level. They'll have to come through council, so you will see them through this channel.
Correct. All right. Anything else? Okay. Someone want to accept make a motion, Councilor Wilson,
Whether we accept staff report for information.
second by Councilor Torman. All those in favor signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. All right. 7.3, streets and sidewalk bylaw update. Let me get myself put in here.
So when you're ready,
Yes, I'm
this is
ready.
obviously the report the council had requested.
Yes,
With respect to the streets and sidewalks bylaw. There was a lot of stuff in the motion and we tried to hit on all of those points here. And then I guess at the end of the day, although it did direct us to raise these considerations and put them in this report. Ultimately, I think the sense, and it was captured in the motion, is that public engagement is a key component moving forward.
Mhm.
So there is a public engagement plan presented as well. But no draft bylaw because, you know, as typically want to know whether council wants the public engagement plan to begin with the drafting of a bylaw, or if some additional public engagement prior to the presentation of the draft bylaw. You've got three motions. Staff does recommend all three, but there may be some nuance in the engagement plan about whether you want us to be having an initial public engagement session without having a draft bylaw. So I'll leave that for your thoughts.
What are the thoughts of council?
So I guess the takeaway on the cadence. So we're suggesting we're going to start the public engagement on the new bylaw in the absence of actually having the bylaw for review.
It's just presented as an option in the engagement plan that Eric prepared there. It says there could be an open house public information meeting on the matter to gather general feedback prior to drafting the bylaw. Staff would also engage with MVTCC to get their input prior to drafting bylaw. So it's basically, you know, is the engagement plan going to say, we will do those two things prior to the drafting of bylaw? Council could still pass the motion directing staff to draft the bylaw now, but we wouldn't go out and show a draft bylaw as the first part of engagement. And it's kind of, we've done both systems. We've tried to start with the draft, we've tried to start with just the general conversation, and there can be value to both, but.
We sort of did a survey before a public survey, for when we did the logo, we revisited the logo. That worked well because it gave our committee some grounding for what the feel was in the community, and it helped us be able to narrow what our focus would be.
Just a couple thoughts. So I know the existing arrangements are being made under the historical bylaw, which, to be frank, at its inception was never, it was really about, hey, what do you do with the scaffolding in front of Bill's store when they were painting the side of the building relative to actual commercial use? Like the original purpose was really about, you know, construction, painting, replacing windows, how do you put up scaffolding, those kinds of things. That was the key theme, which is one of the reasons why it's so kind of narrow. Are we leveraging that document in any way, or are we just simply rescinding it and then moving on to a completely new bylaw?
So this report recommends essentially, you know, that two things, that there is a need to review and redraft streets and sidewalks for the purpose originally intended, which is, it's a well-used bylaw. I mean, we get a lot of applications about the streets and sidewalks bylaw. They're just, as you noted, for construction related purposes.
Right.
So I think there's a need to redraft that. Then there's also a suggestion in the report that a standalone streets or standalone sidewalk cafes bylaw may be preferable. You know, ultimately, I think that that's part of the question around whether we start with a draft, right? So if we're going to start with a draft, are we going to start with a draft standalone sidewalk cafes bylaw? Keep the discussion around the streets and sidewalks update to the sort of more normal procedure where we would just have a hearing.
Right.
So that is why it says in the motions, council directs staff to draft a new streets and sidewalks bylaw for consideration. There's a separate motion from the council directs staff to draft a new sidewalk cafes bylaw for consideration. And then both of those have potential interaction with the third recommendation, which is to do the public engagement plan. So yeah, either it's your option. I would generally say that we don't necessarily need the streets and sidewalks bylaw if it is going to be independent of the sidewalk cafes bylaw. I don't think we need the streets and sidewalks bylaw to go to a public information meeting without a draft.
Right.
I think it's a fairly straightforward update.
Right.
But I'm more concerned with the sidewalk cafes one that we may want to start with a discussion prior to a draft.
Okay, are you finished, Councillor?
No, I
Stephen?
think that
Okay.
CA made that clear.
Councillor Carver?
I support the CAO's comments about the streets and sidewalks bylaw doesn't need a public engagement, I mean, before the draft. But for the other one, it's simply because we know about the public interest that it has generated, the sidewalk cafe or patio, whatever we want to call it, issue. should, I think, go to public engagement before a draft of the bylaw, so, but it could be, the issues or concerns could be summarized. These are the things that we need to consider in drafting a bylaw. So that those things are listed as a framework for the public to think about. So that's my thought about that. Thank you.
Councillor Faulkner?
Yeah, does the streets and sidewalks bylaw include street parking zones?
It doesn't really. It's a good point that that's something that maybe we want to consider adding some language around. But on the other hand, we have a parking bylaw, so it would have more to do with, like the way the streets and sidewalks is currently phrased. If other parties were to have an interaction with the existence of a parking space. So, you know, not to get too far off into the weeds, but if a parking space were designated for a particular business, for example, if we were to consider any interaction there where a business that has a parking space in front within the road right of way wanted it to be designated in some fashion or another. But if it's just about the town's own decisions with respect to parking and availability of parking, I would say not this bylaw, because we do have another bylaw that regulates parking just from the towns as a regulatory perspective. So that can all come up when we're looking at a draft, but that would be my thoughts. This is about governing public interactions with our streets and sidewalks more so.
Yeah. The second option is draft a new sidewalk cafe bylaw. Presupposes that there can even be sidewalk cafes under the new regulation, given our street setup and safety in terms of parking, visibility, and so on and so forth. I'm not convinced that there is an opportunity, in which case we're creating a lot of talk about nothing.
And
Yeah,
so I actually share this sentiment.
Yeah.
I generally feel that we may not arrive at a bylaw that would work. But I guess that's a rationale for having an initial session without a draft bylaw, and maybe even getting to Councillor Carter's point, to explore that very subject. You know, we have always had for PIMS kind of a list to run through some slides like thought provoking. Here are some things we'd like to talk to the public about. So we could flag the, you know, basic challenge of, so is there anywhere in town that actually would work if you follow the new regulations? Like, is it realistic to even put this forward? I'm sure that question will come up.
Not necessarily to be avoided, but there are obviously strong opposing points of view. Are we creating a situation that we don't need to create?
Valid question. I think that's a question for the rest of the council.
okay,
Kind
Councillor.
of building on Councillor Palfreyman's thoughts. So just so we're absolutely consistent, we have a process now through the sidewalks, through the streets and sidewalk bylaw that allows a business owner to apply for a permit. And our consistent message has been that there are rules associated with that permit. And that those rules are you know, if followed, would allow a business owner, if compliant, to conduct business and go on their merry way. Consistently, we've also said, hey, listen, we're also aware of these provincial regulations and these new rules coming in as of April 1st, and we've accelerated that to based on Councillor Carver's motion from July. So there is absolutely an expectation that there is a path to compliance, and the compliance is driven by the provincial standards. And so it strikes me that if we end up in a situation where we have a public meeting and there's a debate whether you can or cannot have the sidewalk cafe, that would not be at all consistent with our messaging over the last 2 months. Because our messaging is, if you can obey the rules and if you can meet the provincial standards, go forth and multiply, as they said. So I just want to think we have to be absolutely consistent in exactly what we're saying by going to a public meeting in the absence of having a bylaw and having the meeting be dominated by a conversation of there's absolutely no way we can have a sidewalk cafe in Mahone Bay. Because I think that is wildly inconsistent with the message that we've been giving since July, because we've not said no, we've said yes, if you follow the rules. So as long as we can get to a position where, yes, if you follow the rules and it's aligned with the rules, that would be consistent. If we're finding out that it's impossible to be compliant with the rules, I think that would be new information. And then we could go back to revisiting the motion from June based on new information, like truly new information, to Councilor Paul Thurman's point, but I just haven't seen that be communicated yet. So I think we have to be I'm a little reticent, I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's a good idea for us to show up at a public meeting with no draft. I think we either show up with a public meeting with a draft and say, what do you think? Or we show up at a meeting and say, based on all this new information, this is not something we can have in our town, and let the chips fall where they may. What do you all think?
CAO?
Just quickly to the, so I do want to be clear, because I think you're correct, Joe. What I think that Councillor Paul Furman was saying, and what I was saying in terms of reading, was that while you take the basic standards that the province has prescribed that we've now put in place, there are other things that have been raised,
Right.
such as the provincial standards do not require you to maintain the existing path of travel. So you can, albeit more comprehensively, provide a temporary sidewalk for diversion so that the sales area is contiguous with the business. But a lot of the public feedback centered around the idea that the original path of travel should be maintained. So if the town's bylaw decides to add that type of requirement, it may essentially rule out the applicability of the bylaw to any real property that is actually located in Mahone Bay. Whether that's a problem or not, ultimately a draft bylaw can be put out there, and people could say, well, look, when I look at this draft bylaw, I'm not really sure if there's any properties that could really benefit from this bylaw. But that is, to your point, totally separate from the town allowing for the applications. So I take your point, and I think a draft could be made. And still, we might find that once the final draft is created, there are few applications, practically speaking.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll let Councillor Wilson go because you've had one.
Yeah, I think one of the things we shouldn't do is underestimate the creativity
Exactly.
of our our retail people.
Yeah.
Because, and not to mention the fact that it's a small town, but it's not that small. So there are places around town where these things can be possible. I would also suggest we might want to not talk about cafes, because there are other reasons why people might want to expand their retail out into the street, you know, to even like a dress shop, for example.
Yes.
I might just suggest that if we do the motion, you can replace, as I've suggested before, sidewalk cafes with seasonal sales areas. If you want, that's the kind of more commonly used term for the generic.
Okay, Councillor Carver.
So in listening to Councillor Feeney, I then wondered about the merits of working on the streets and sidewalks bylaw first. Getting that draft done and worked through. And then looking at the side, whatever we want to call it.
Commercial.
I mean, I still favor the idea of involving the public on that, around the issues, not on the draft bylaw, but we would have the draft sidewalk, streets and sidewalks bylaw available for reference. And then all the issues that we need to consider if we draft a separate bylaw for street use business, whatever we want to call it.
Seasonal retail.
Seasonal retail, thank you. So I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of the community conversation.
No, nor am I. So in August, in October, any business owner can come in and still apply under the existing rules, as long as they're compliant with the April 1st standards.
Yes.
People will be well off to do that. Like, so I think the absence, so there's this idea that there's gonna be this new bylaw. Like, if I was so inclined, like I'd be sticking in my application now under the existing rules. There's no, because I don't think the bylaw, you say, I want a permit for next May, but I'm putting in my application in October under the existing rules. So I don't think we can spend many months figuring this out. I think we need rules, and we need to have the rules communicated to the public who may want to avail of them, but I think we need to have we need to have something in place by the end of January, I would think, like to give people, so that people can get their design and their construction. And I don't think that we can prioritize the sidewalks at the exclusion of the other bylaw, because to be frank, the other bylaw is more salient. Like people are going to put up their scaffolding and they're going to paint their buildings, and we're going to help them do that. That's going to be not the problem. I just think we need to be very clear on what the rules of the road are as soon as possible. I know that's a heavy lift for council and staff, but given the visibility of this issue, I think we really need to get on this. Because we could have a request for an extension under the new rules based on the July 30th date rules from the July motion. So now it's September, and then it'll be October, and then it'll be Christmas. I think we just need to move on to the new bylaw ASAP. But that's just one opinion. What do y'all think?
Can I just ask Councillor Feedy?
Yes.
So the new bylaw you feel we need to move on is the seasonal business?
Yes.
Bylaw before the streets and sidewalks bylaw?
Well, right now, any business can avail of the streets and sidewalks bylaw to effectively request a permit. They can do that today, and they'll be able to do that until they won't be able to do that. And the only reason they won't be able to do it is because we'll have amended that bylaw. And we're not, and that's not going to happen in the month of October and the month of November from the sounds of it. So we either rescind and eliminate that right in that legacy bylaw. And I wouldn't want to do that without having something replacing it, because we still have 2 letters from Wagner Law that make it pretty clear. Like people have an expectation of this is a by right. If you're compliant with the provincial regulations, there is an opinion, maybe not shared by everybody, there's an opinion that you can avail of the legacy bylaw to affect the permit, to request the permit. So all I'm suggesting is that isn't going to, even if we approve these 3 motions this morning, and I'm assuming we will, somebody could come in tomorrow and still submit a permit. Right, and avail of the old rules. So the good news is the old rules are not grandfathered forever. They're only in place until we change them. Meaning, I think the ball is in our court to change them. If we're going to change them, it should be to the benefit of overall business owners. We're not trying to impede anybody. We're just trying to make sure they're compliant with the rules.
Yeah.
So I'm just in the interest of trying to kind of pathway forward with time considered. If Councillor Carver's suggestion, we had a draft streets and sidewalks bylaw, a new draft, which essentially removes the opportunity to apply for seasonal area from that bylaw. And if that draft were presented along with a series of considerations for a standalone seasonal sales area bylaw, that meeting that would enable that conversation, if that took place in October, potentially in the first half of October, there'd be nothing to stop council from then moving into the formal adoption process on streets and sidewalks, which essentially closes the opportunity for people to apply. The question then just becomes, how long is the lead time to put the new seasonal sales area rules in place? I do think council, like if we have a public information meeting in October, council could receive a draft the next month. So reasonably speaking, by the beginning of November, you might not be able to accept any proposals, and then by the beginning of January, we would again be able to accept them, but under a new set of rules. So I do think that timeline is possible based on the motions presented. But you should expect that first public session, if it's going to include, as I think Councillor Carver's suggestion was a good one, have one public session where we've got a draft of a streets and sidewalks that is clear, removes this, and people can accept. It's great. That can go on then to the formal process and probably not gather much interest. And that will be enough to get people thinking, you know, in line with the slides around other considerations, to inform the seasonal sales area part and get a draft to come forward on that. I mean, I think that's a reasonable way to take things forward from here. So the motions would only need to be tweaked in the word seasonal sales area or place sidewalk cascades, if that's the preference.
But if we take that cadence, we'll be changing a bylaw to eliminate a right to get a permit before
Yeah.
we have a replacement.
There'd be a gap of.
There'd be a
like 2
gap.
months, yeah.
And what's the virtue of having the gap? Other than it alleviates pain and suffering for the manager of operations who has to take the heavy burden of dealing with the permit. And these are all theoretical.
Yeah,
This
well,
is
there's
just
2 ways to
theoretical
deal with it.
problem.
Yeah, either you just, you continue to leave the draft streets and sidewalks bylaw, the new draft as a draft until the completion of the development of seasonal sales area. So it's presented, but it's not approved, so the old one continues to be in place. Or you have to get the draft seasonal sales area bylaw and put that in the first meeting in October in order to have them both be done before Christmas. And that's just a different approach, right? That's the approach where staff draft a seasonal sales area bylaw based on what we now know today and take it out to the public. I just, that's really the crucial question in the engagement plan is that something you want us to do? It will surely inflame some passions, but at the same time, it does direct the conversation a little bit more, so. I think that's really the question for you guys right now, that's all that's really the question.
And how, and this affects a lot of other regulations and other policies, like if people deem, if you take, and many of the voices I heard were the loss of parking spaces in a crucial area where people need to park. And that it was taken away, not just from the one business, but the other vendors in that area felt that they didn't have the parking availability too. So are there parking things that we have to consider too on that street? And you'll say no parking at all, Councillor.
I've been saying, I've been advocating for some time that we need a parking plan.
Yeah.
And the options that we have, and there are options to reduce the dependence on street parking, which needs to be further reduced because the visibility of exits from buildings, particularly these ones we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
So we have those. So I would certainly say there is a definite linkage between the two. If you take one away, you better have a plan to replace it, which we don't have at the moment. And we should. So, but I'm interested in the tweak the CEO was talking about in the second recommendation.
Oh, no, so Councillor Wilson suggested that rather than calling it sidewalk cafes bylaw, we should use the term.
Oh, that's what I see.
But I did want to jump on the, because there's a positive synergy, I think, with what Brian's saying about, there's a note in the engagement plan, in the draft engagement plan, about how this will also parallel our active transportation plan development. And when the land use bylaw was done, because of all the ways that these things interrelate to your point, Mayor, there was a note in the land use bylaw that is called attention to here that essentially said, when there are prioritized pedestrian travel routes, like active transportation routes, they will, by coming into existence, create new requirements for developers to align developments with those routes. So essentially what that says, there's a specific one that has already come up. If a designated section of sidewalk that comes along, past a new private road or development with a long laneway, is there a requirement for that developer to bring sidewalk from the door to the existing sidewalk? Well, right now, we don't really have a designation of which are key accessible routes through the community. Well, the active transportation plan will, by definition, include defining, like, here's the key routes for accessibility, here are routes for active transportation like cycling, these kind of things will be defined. And similarly, if a parking plan were ever adopted, if that was something that was a standalone document, we could essentially carve out the idea that would establish some requirements for priority parking that would then come back on when staff are applying the seasonal sales area bylaw. If we prioritize certain parking and said, well, the parking plan says these parking spaces are not to be sacrificed to an application on the seasonal sales area bylaw, staff can then take that into consideration. So I think the parking plan and active transportation plan can come along later, as long as we anticipate the idea in the seasonal sales area bylaw that any requirements for priority active transportation routes or priority parking spaces subsequently set will then be considered in whether we grant a permit. So I do think there's a good wraparound, because I don't think we're gonna get all these things done at the same time. I think there's a good wraparound that even if they're done later, they can still be considered in subsequent permit applications. I know this is into the weeds, but we're pretty far into the weeds, so.
Yes, Councillor Carver.
I'd like just to be refreshed about the motion that was passed July 31st about implementing the April 26th standards now. What did it refer to? Did it refer to patios or seasonal businesses?
It's in the package here. It's
But I was just scrutinizing it, and I could only find the other
top of
motion.
page 3. Sorry, I know it isn't right next to the other one. The council hereby adopts Nova Scotia Built Environment Accessibility Standards due to come into effect to be applied to any applications received under the Streets and Sidewalks bylaw. So we would be applying them to any application under the Streets and Sidewalks bylaw, including the facade improvement or, you know, that kind of stuff. I think it's
Sorry,
appropriate.
I can't find it in my document because there's no pagination. And I.
Yeah, I don't know why there isn't, but it is just the third page.
Could you read it slowly, that what the motion said?
Yeah. So I think I can come from to be applied, right? Because so the council hereby adopts the Nova Scotia Built Environment Accessibility Standards due to come into effect April 1, 2026. To be applied to any applications received under the Streets and Sidewalks bylaw after the date of this motion.
Oh, to any application, okay, so
So-
that would cover any.
And really, like, that is as of April 1.
Yeah.
Totally non-negotiable,
Right.
even if it's for
Yeah.
facade improvement, you still have to adhere to those new guidelines.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. Councillor,
Can we start with the motions?
sure.
The council direct staff to draft the new streets and sidewalk bylaw for consideration.
Second.
Second by Councillor Carver. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. All right, yes, Councillor Wilson.
The council direct staff to draft a new retail
Seasonal sales area.
seasonal sales area bylaw for consideration.
Seconder for that, Councillor Feeney. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Carver?
I don't intend to support that motion because I prefer the idea of including with the presentation to the public of a draft of this new streets and sidewalks bylaw, that it be accompanied in the public engagement with a list of the issues that we would have to address or that would need to be addressed for seasonal sales areas.
Thanks, Ian.
So I don't know if Councillor Wilson would consider, but you know, you obviously could, because we talked about it, put in the motion. The council direct staff to draft a new streets and or new seasonal sales area bylaw for consideration following the conduct of the public information session to collect information to inform the development of this bylaw. That way, it's not just in the public engagement plan, the sequencing, but it's in the motion.
So are we gonna revisit the cadence again?
I'm just, this is the option. This has been the discussion this morning. Are we starting with draft or not? And I just wanted to make it clear to Councillor Wilson, it's his choice in the motion if he wants it to come after.
Councillor Wilson,
Yeah, I intentionally did not do it
Oh.
the other way.
okay? All right, so any further questions? All those in favor, signify aye.
Pardon me, Mayor, just to clarify, the motion is as written.
Yeah, well, as written, except it says seasonal sales.
Fair enough, fair.
And I just will reiterate that I will not support the motion because I prefer the other approach of including some public engagement with the draft. Streets and sidewalks bylaw that would inform the development, any development of a seasonal sales area bylaw.
But to be understood, there will still be public consultation with the the bylaw, with all bylaws, there'll still be public engagement, it's just at a you won't have the beforehand one.
Well,
It was
presuming the next motion passes on the engagement plan, we will still hold a public information meeting before going to the hearings. It's just that that meeting will include both draft bylaws for consideration, as well as the list of considerations that went into the drafting to Council Terrace Farm. But both drafts would be presented. That's the key distinction. Presuming the engagement plan is approved, otherwise we'll just jump right to hearings, but I'm assuming that won't.
The essential point for me is that we not be providing a draft bylaw about the seasonal sales area prepackaged to the public before the public has ability or input.
Councillor.
I presume we will see this draft before it goes to the public.
Yeah, well, I think what we'll try to do is we'll try to have draft the policy and strategy before we have the PIM.
Right.
It's just kind of down to the timing of policy and strategy, so we'll see what we can do about that. Eric's there in the background, so Eric, you and I will talk about, next policy and strategy is coming up pretty soon. So maybe we'll have to schedule the PIM the week after the October policy and strategy in order to hit that. But now that we're gonna have two drafts, I don't think that will prevent us from getting everything adopted before the beginning of January, so that should be okay.
Yeah. All right, everyone clear on what you're voting for? And on, okay, so, we have a motion and a second, all those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. One nay, the motion's carried. Council Wilson,
I'd like to move that council approve the attached public engagement plan for the public engagement policy.
okay, is there a second?
I would second the motion, but I would like to see something regarding the new drafts, the new draft bylaws.
So you'd say the public engagement plan as amended to include presentation of both drafts to the public
Yeah,
information.
thank you, yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Otherwise,
Is the
reading the
move-
motion later, it doesn't say anything about what it's about.
Is,
Because it was phrased as a question in the public engagement plan, like this plan could go either way. So let's just put in the motion, council's direction is that the plan be approved as amended to reflect that both drafts will be presented to the public information. If that's okay with you.
Just to point out, it tells you exactly what it is in the first paragraph of the attachment. Which is referred to in the motion.
Council Carver,
It happens sometimes that I search minutes looking for a decision. And if I find that decision standalone without the attachment, because that sometimes happens, the attached documents sometimes don't appear in with the statement. It would certainly help my brain to have, and I think the public to have it clearly stated what the motion is referring to.
Council Wilson,
I'm happy to make the change in the motion. I just wanted to point out that it's redundant.
okay. So we have a mover and a seconder, any more discussion? Being none, I'm calling the question, all those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. All right. Thank you very much. We are now moving on to the discretion, and that is item 7.4.
And I'll note that this is presented for information that was requested previously by council. Happy to take any questions.
I just had one, maybe a remark that as an elected official, we do not charge fees when we do an oath or sort of a document, just so that you know. Staff can charge a fee, or the town and the staff person is doing it.
Yeah.
But an elected official
You're not
is
allowed to,
given that
yeah.
privilege, but there's no charge.
Do we have any fee on there for notarizing or?
Yeah. The new one had a fee.
So for the commissioner of oaths, if we're performing that, so I'm Commissioner Bose,
Yeah.
I'm performing that for municipal duty, I can't charge a fee for that, given that title as part of the municipality to do a municipal service, I can't act in that, in a private capacity in that role.
There was a charge though in the document that was presented, because I picked up on that. But I know that elected officials, like I can, because I'm mayor, but I'm also in the process of applying for more abilities for documentation, so but I know that I cannot charge a fee. So you go to a lawyer, they can charge you $150, they can charge you $100, but
For a notary, that's correct, you don't have any staff people who are notary publics.
Councilor Wilson?
Yeah, I was a little confused about this report because the question was which fees are set by law, which I guess are the electric utility and the water utility, fair enough. But then there was supposed to be another list of the things that we have fees for that are at our discretion to charge, and I didn't see that list.
Yeah, or do you want to respond to it? Essentially, the list is what is in the bylaw.
It's everything else in the schedule, so aside from the fees outlined in the Municipal Elections Act, and then ones that have to be approved by the Utility and Review Board, council has discretion to set those.
But what are they?
So in the
So-
fee schedule.
Yeah, it's in the fees bylaws, or fees policy schedule on the website. That's what had been approved at the meeting in which the question arose. But if you want on the website, the fees policy, that the whole list of fees there, essentially what we're saying is that those fees can all be altered at council's discretion, with the exception of the fees regulated through the Nova Scotia Review Board, or the fees set in the Elections Act. So all the development fees in particular are at our discretion.
No, I understand, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh,
I think we need a motion to accept this report for information. I'm happy to make it.
okay, is there a seconder for the motion? Councilor Carver, I guess. All right, all those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed,
Right.
nay. Okay, thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Mashup Lab proposal 7.5. Let's see.
So this is the sort of thing, I'll just preface this by saying, would be easier probably if it came in as correspondence, because effectively that's what I'm trying to relay here is that there is an opportunity, the sort of opportunity we might get a letter saying, do we want to contribute to? I'm not trying to recommend it, which is why it lacks a recommended motion. I think there's good reasons why council would not consider it, and there's reasons why council might wish to consider it. But ultimately, I'm just presenting it in a format because it comes to us through the staff channels as opposed to as outside correspondence. So hopefully that's clear. I have to answer questions.
Excuse me, what was the channel that it came from?
So the economic development officers meet, and we don't have one, but we get tapped into those meetings. So mostly it's a discretionary budgets for business development, so they don't go to council for something like this. But we don't, and to be honest, I would say we probably should not start having a business development budget line. It's an area we don't work in, it's an area we're not required to work in, and Mahone Bay doesn't necessarily seem to have a lot of need for it. There's a lot of entrepreneurship locally anyway. But to miss a initiative that the whole county is doing without you guys having a chance to consider participating wouldn't be appropriate either, so.
Do we know what other municipalities have bought into this?
They all have.
They all have?
There's 5 in
Okay,
Kenya.
but they have full-time employees dedicated to economic development.
If you look at the cost contributions that are in there, my understanding is that for all of the units involved, this was considered to be within the discretionary budget lines for business development, so it was approved at the staff level. I don't think it went to the other councils.
I just have we've already been approached on that study about economic development that we're participating in. Sort of reviewing sort of a LeBren type of program again. And then there's also one with the South Shore Chamber that they've asked for our.
Well, in that way, I will stress that MIT, REAP and LIFT are two organizations of private sector business folks in the area. So
Mhm.
there is some buy-in from the business community. But I certainly feel that the discussion about the feasibility of a regional entity
Mm,
would address whether we have a role as the town of Hall Bay in supporting business development. Because right now it is generally speaking a provincial responsibility. We don't have a municipal organization in the county like a Wren that is doing business development.
Right.
And whether we should or not is TBD based on having said we're gonna do this feasibility study about the creation of such a body.
Okay, Rebecca, Councillor Toronto had her.
No, I didn't. No.
Oh, I
Did
thought
I?
you did. I thought you did. Just, okay, Councillor Carver.
I just had a question.
Okay,
What, I mean, what is $200 gonna get us if there's there's nothing on the receiving end to work or collaborate with this? So just to Dylan's point, where would sort of collaboration, where would that end up? I mean,
Yeah, it's really more about just like, are we supporting a program? The program delivery would not be any different based on the contribution of $200, is my understanding.
Uh-huh.
It would be exactly the same, and our staff won't be involved with the delivery of the program either way.
right.
So this is a private sector for-profit business that provides kind of entrepreneurship training. I don't know, this doesn't strike me as a core mandate. I know, like, my gut instinct generally is to, when having the opportunity to partner, we partner. There's a lot of value in partnerships and collaboration with our other municipal friends in Limerick County and all across the South Shore, but in this case, it's not, it doesn't really seem that it's really well coordinated in any kind of. It just seems like the funding partners are predominantly governments, municipal governments.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
this doesn't kind of feel right for me. I don't know anything about the firm or the business or what their mandate is or who's gonna participate, but.
I think it's just fundamentally not the sort of thing we usually do.
Right,
And so
right.
you're right, it doesn't feel normal. And that's where, the only reason to support it traditionally might be to go along with the regional effort. But I agree that this is not generally speaking something that we do.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me that, oh, sorry.
Councillor Carver.
I'm just assuming there's some time lag.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would sort of share Councillor Feeney's sentiments of just, there's something that doesn't feel
Doesn't
right, but
belong.
at the same time, when I see all the other units taking part, and who is this organization, private business? And is it the same organization that's been operating in Bridgewater for quite a few years?
And just change its name.
Which is a private business. I'm just thinking, my thoughts, random thoughts. There's something that appeals to me about support for entrepreneurial efforts locally. I mean, I know that the provincial government does provide support for entrepreneurial initiatives. But that's kind of remote, distant HRM government. Whereas there is something appealing about this more local approach. And for $200, what do we get? I don't know, other than being
Can I-
part of a local group. That's my random list of thoughts.
Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Kingsmill.
Just to clarify, I think, this Mashup Labs has been around for 20 odd years. That's Andrew Button,
Yeah,
and Andrew Button used to be the head of what preceded the Wren.
Okay, but Andrew's now head of emergency services. He's no
Well,
longer.
his name is used in this document, so
Hmm.
he's there somewhere. But I agree, this is, I mean, it's only $200, but it's a waste of $200.
We talked about that yesterday at the meeting, right? Yeah, Councillor Kingsman?
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Penny and Kelly. And if they wanted to, maybe they should come and make a presentation, so it would be a little more three-dimensional than just looking at this deck.
So if it's
Right.
Andrew Button, this started down under the Mug and Anchor many years ago as,
And it's
yeah.
it's predated at
Yeah.
Malone Centre by Tim
Yeah,
McMurray
that's right.
and a couple
Right.
of others. And it's very successful and the centre participated in their development.
Right.
They participated in the centre's development,
Yeah.
mutually beneficial. And then it moved on to Mashup Labs.
Okay,
So there is a history in town here.
yeah, yeah. When I think about it, Councillor Carter.
Has anybody within our organization had a conversation about this with the chamber?
No,
Relevant.
no, not that I know of. This is, I think the CAO, when he said this, wasn't sure if it should go under correspondence or as a council or staff, said a staff report, so.
But yeah, I mean, there's no obligation here, you know, you guys just have.
Yeah,
to
we
decide
don't-
whether you-
Okay, I'm just gonna try this. So in the spirit of supporting the other initiative, the regional economic development entity, I move that we do contribute $200 to this project. The Mashup Lab proposal.
I would second.
You'll second it, okay, Councillor Hoffman? Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed? I think the opposed,
Bonds opposed to the.
Yeah, yeah, okay, for, yeah, the motion is not,
Defeated.
is defeated. Okay. Moving on to hedgerow 7.6. Thank you. All right, you all saw the package with the one-way proposal to hedgerow.
And I'll just note for preface, this report remains exactly as it was deferred from last year. I didn't go in and add information, so there may be some relevant updates to the progress of development on hedgerow. But I can only comment about that to the extent that it's public information. Council had deferred this by a year in part to give a different council a go at this question, but in part because of the relation to developments, which I will say are ongoing and getting quite close to moving to public.
Council Hoffman?
I propose to defer it for a further month until we actually do have some information about what is planned.
No seconder on that? Okay, secondly, Councillor Wilson. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so it is
Mayor,
the,
this has been, I mean, I think the report is kind of as presented from March of 2024. And then I think we revisited it in September. I think, you know, the inevitable move to hedgerow as one way is probably something council's considered. And, you know, I think really the only salient, issue at this point is really how far does the one way extend? In this case, it extends to Maple. I think we've had quite a few deliberations about the virtue of extending it all the way to Pond Street. And that again was based on the lack of understanding of what the characteristics of the development. And so there historically was concern about having a very significant increase of traffic up the hill onto Maple. Coming from the, access and egress coming from a large development, but in the absence of understanding kind of the volumes and the units, I mean, there might be a real value in deferring the conversation until we have just a little more visibility on the volume. If the volume is, as it was reported a year or so ago, was high, like we're talking, 200 units, then that would obviously be a different issue than if the volume was more moderate. And I think without kind of weighing in at this point on the virtues of extending the hedgerow one way all the way to Maple or to Pond, I think council will be better informed with a little more background about the development, because I really do think that's the real issue. Anyway, those are just a few thoughts, Mayor. I support the Councillor Baldwin's motion.
And I expect that by the October 14th or something meeting, when that comes around, we will probably have a public proposal that invite neighbors and stuff, so we can talk about it.
And would the proposal also include, while construction is taking place, how are big trucks, will they be moved into the area a different way than hedgerow? Because if you have a dump truck on hedgerow, it will stop traffic completely.
Yeah, it's actually a good question to be raised now while they're in the state of review of their plans that they're at.
So can they?
I'll make a note to, what are you actually thinking when it comes down to it? Are you, work out something with the Legion to come in from that side? 'Cause
There or behind the
Yeah.
post office, well, the
Yeah,
post
that's
office,
not a
we
good place to
couldn't,
work.
we couldn't go in
I
there,
think
but
coming in through the Legion property.
I know, there's a relationship between the Legion and the developer, so, it could be,
There's also a relationship between Eli and Trix and the developer.
okay.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a safe access for Maine. I personally, I would hope they work something out. with the
I don't
Legion,
think you
but-
could cut in, but because that road will be blocked completely, right?
Yeah,
a big
no,
truck.
that's a good point to bring up.
Excuse me, the road behind the post office.
The hedgerow and is so, it's a lane, it's
Yeah,
not, and it just, if you have dump trucks and heavy equipment going through there, it'll block traffic.
During construction.
Yes,
Yeah, you probably can't even make the turns, like, it wouldn't, I don't think they could even make the turns, you just get a truck who gets stopped on the ship.
Yeah,
Better to tell them right off, yeah, so we'll talk about that, they probably already
and-
considered those logistics.
and also there are some historic markers from the old town hall. Are those going to be considered in, will they be removed? What is to happen with those?
You and I might need to talk offline about that,
Okay.
I know there's a little
The stone,
access road, but the old town
There's
hall is
stone.
located on the property that belongs.
there's
to
stone that
Alex.
belongs to the old town hall that was cut in
I
two.
just wonder if it belongs to Alex Oak now.
I wonder if it belongs to that right away.
Yeah,
Well, if it's on the right of way, yes.
see, I think they're on the right.
Okay.
ways.
Yeah.
So the old town hall was
so-
on what is now his property.
I would have thought it was on the where the post office is now, the old town hall, I believe.
Well, we were just, I know, getting off in the weeds, we were just looking at a plan that showed an outbuilding behind the post office.
Town hall was set further back.
It was marked,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it was on the upper level, and the
Yeah.
upper level there is part of this development now.
From my understanding is the markers are for the right of way.
Yeah.
Not,
That was
Not
my
connected to
understanding,
town halls.
in which case they would not be removed, or, we could deal with them, yeah.
I interestingly enough, I think historical right of ways and laneways have been a bit of a topic of interest lately. The mayor was reading my mind. I was kind of interested in just making sure that there's some clarity around that historical right of way. But I do think that those two posts, which are actually the two pillars, one on either end, one by Eli and Trix's, and the other one, of course, up on Hedgerow. I mean, I really think that those two posts are very interesting historical items that, I mean, they are prominently displayed in a lot of historical photographs of the old town hall, and I think I think having them maintained would be well within the town's historical mandate, the Heritage Committee's mandate to take a look at that. I hope that the post on Hedgerow would not be removed.
You hearing that, chair of the heritage?
Got
Anyway, not Hilton.
Got it.
Yeah, the one on
Absolute man.
right is there, no issue there. The only question is just stuff on private property. I mean, the right, the little cut through right away is private property, but it's not part of this development. And then the actual site of the old town hall is part of this development, but I'm sure we can work with the developer on that.
Okay. Just some little things in our little heritage
Old-
plan we need to preserve.
Old towns, old issues.
Okay. Okay.
So the motion to defer has.
Has
Passed.
been passed and seconded. Any further discussion?
Did we actually vote?
No, we didn't
Okay.
vote. We're still in discussion, so. Ready for the question?
Yeah.
All those in favor signify aye.
I,
Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you.
So now, speaking of heritage,
Okay, 8 item 8, council items, heritage property hearing, 430 Main Street. And we had before us, and we are revisiting it with more information.
well, I don't think the property owner is going to object, but here's the opportunity.
So during a heritage property hearing, only the property owner can speak.
Oh,
To whether or not they want the property
okay.
registered, or they think there's say anything at all.
Usually they don't attend, but
Usually.
when you're on council, they have to.
so,
So, what, is it scheduled? Has it happened? But what, where?
This is the hearing.
This is it.
This is.
Oh, this is the hearing, okay.
So the owner would be told, this is your opportunity to speak for or against, yeah.
oh,
What do you say, owner?
You don't have.
no, I'd be happy if this, moved forward. I have no objections. My husband will kill me.
Okay,
There's that, yes.
So, do we need to confirm now that we've had the hearing, or is it just? the
So
hearing?
it's just a motion that council directs staff to register the property.
Oh, so we still do need to do a motion?
Okay.
Okay.
all right, so,
Happy
the counselor,
So moved.
Carver, and second by Feeny?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Just, as part of discussion, I just, made a note of wondering about including a photo for the file and for the website when it's posted.
Yeah, we always do that.
Right, okay, it's just, it wasn't part of the package that we received, so.
Actually, we
Maybe
just
his-
redid the heritage property page on the.
and they can be historical ones too, right? They don't have to be today, version of the whole, which is.
Right.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much.
In roughly
Exciting. Thank you.
2 days, it will be.
Yeah, we'll
Never
be on
happens
that
right away.
site.
It always takes us some time.
Congratulations.
Be registered by a lawyer, so it takes a little bit of time.
Or 10 years.
Yeah. Someone-
There are no committee reports, and under 10, was there any new business? No, well, I sort of had it's not on here, and we were, our subcommittee for audit and finance. We couldn't find, our minutes were with somebody on vacation, so we couldn't really look at our minutes before setting, no, for our agenda. So we neglected to get this item in before, the meeting. We can defer it, but, it's something our committee decided is that the recommendation from the committee is to, separate audit and finance into 2 committees. That audit have a special goal, and finance committee would have a different mandate, but they would work together somewhat, but they would be they would have separate functions.
So it's interesting that you bring this up, because I actually did have a question, kind of just a logistical question, but I don't mind doing it on the record, which is, we would have an audit and finance committee technically scheduled for next Thursday. The rationale at this point would only be to receive the report of the subcommittee.
Mhm.
because we don't have new statements or anything to go over with the audit committee this time.
Right,
So we would normally suggest to defer unless you think the
Okay.
subcommittee is ready to formally give a recommendation.
we
Otherwise, I
do
think
have a
we should-
meeting scheduled for tomorrow, so,
So we could wait and see.
we could wait and see, but that was a decision made at our last meeting. We deferred it so that we could see if council wanted to make a decision now, or you wanted to go to audit and finance first and then come back. We weren't sure of the process, that if we reported.
Yeah, I would have generally thought, and it's,
it's
but
fine.
it would be a report, the subcommittee to the committee.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we go to the next audit finance meeting, whether that meeting was next week or we push it a month so that it can then also look at the audited. Like whether we wait till we have audited draft 23-24 statements to meet. Or meet to consider the report of the subcommittee is a question that I have for you as a group. And you don't have to answer it on the record, but I think there's some question. Whether we'll be ready to meet next Thursday.
So I would be happy to move the audit and finance committee to later to accommodate the audited
Right.
statements. And the report from the subcommittee.
well, then it will delay our work if we wait. Unless you mean we meet next week for the report from,
I see.
see, it will delay. We
So-
wanna decide which direction we keep going now. Do we work on, can we separate them and start developing these committees? How we think they should be laid out, because we have people working on them from our committee. Or is it a no from council and we stop there and we just establish the
So
one committee?
So procedurally, you're talking about the recommendation from a subcommittee.
Mhm.
And as the CAO has just said, that recommendation
Right.
typically would go to the host committee, which is the current
Right.
audit and finance committee. So the next question is, what's the time sensitivity on this?
Well, we would like. We'll have to have then, we'll have to have an audit and finance next week to have our report.
I guess that's the thing is the subcommittee requesting, and you can
Yeah.
decide tomorrow. Are you requesting that the audit and finance committee go ahead next week to receive a report, in which case there should be something written for council to dig into? Or, do you want some more time for that? Because otherwise we don't need to be.
But I'm just
So-
letting you know that this is the direction the committee has decided to bring
it
forward
is.
to council.
And there's merit in that direction, and I think council will be amenable to hearing all about it, but there is still process that we have to
Yeah.
follow. One,
I
which is
agree.
that we need to have the recommendation presented back to the audit committee. Or to the strategy and policy committee, so that we can, in which I think I'd kind of recommend that cadence. So we have a meeting on Thursday, I think, Mayor, to revisit that. I think we formalize it and have that approved and have that motion forwarded to the strategy and policy committee for the 26th or 27th, whatever that is this month. And then the committee be basically empowered to continue as if the decision will be forthcoming. I think it will be in due course.
We just don't want to invest time
Yeah, well, I think we
into
got.
going in one direction and have council say, well,
No, that makes
We
good sense.
want
If the
to-
recommendation goes to policy and strategy, we can push off audit and finance to
Yeah.
September.
The-
So
the
everybody's
mo-
fine with that.
The motivations behind the recommendation are well founded, and council will hear all about it, and why I have every faith that they'll approve it and understand it, but there still needs to be collateral material produced so that change can occur.
And that
And
can
that's
be
not gonna
this-
be ready
this
for
week.
Thursday, right? That won't be ready for Thursday.
So
we-
policy and strategy could be the place where this recommendation is received, in which case we don't need an audit and finance committee until we have statements to review.
I think-
It avoids the need to have another meeting this month.
Councilor Carver?
I'm confused. Is the suggestion that the recommendation of the subcommittee go directly to policy and strategy?
I
Yes.
think that's what Joe is.
That's what Joe was saying,
What
but
organizationally, how does that work? The subcommittee is a creature of the audit
Yeah,
and finance
yeah.
committee.
You're absolutely correct, which is you know, this item that we're talking about is not on the agenda today. So, I mean, we're just trying to, you know, expedite the process and make sure that the subcommittee's efforts can be efficient. So there is an expectation that the subcommittee is going to be continuing on in their efforts. I think this is the first time that this item has been disclosed. It should have been probably, the recommendation should flow normally back to the Audit and Finance Committee, but to the CAO's point, we're not going to have one this month. So all I'm suggesting is that in recognition of the fact that, you know, council is busy and there's lots of meetings, lots of different moving forward, this is a path forward so that we can have a quick conversation about this and later on this month, so that we're in a position to act upon that next month when the audit committee meeting is rescheduled. Is that, I think that's the same.
My perspective, but I really don't, you know, it's just the question of, do we convene an audit and finance committee meeting
No.
in September to only hear the recommendation of the subcommittee? I mean, it's just another night, as Joe said, we're already getting together 2 business days later, and so the question is, do we need a separate meeting?
Council Carver.
Well, because I think following protocol and procedure is important. Another way of dealing with that, because I don't see I don't believe that is a proper procedure to have the recommendation coming from a subcommittee of another committee coming to policy and strategy. So because policy and strategy is a committee of the whole, and because audit and finance is also a committee of the whole, perhaps during the policy and strategy committee, we could change our hats and call ourselves the audit committee.
Because you're missing civilians.
Yeah, you have civilians, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean we can't try to back them, but to be honest, the policy and strategy committee agenda for the 22nd will probably be pretty robust anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all we're talking about here is developing 2 terms of reference, one for the policy, for the audit committee, one for the finance committee, and bifurcating the two
No,
policies.
we want to know if council,
Yes,
the direction they want us to work on. Some people are drafting ideas, but rather than people progressing into 2 committees and separating it from 1 committee, we want to know the direction we should go in. If council does not want to have 2 separate committees, which is the recommendation of the subcommittee, or do we want to stay as one and then we will move our work forward in that way? We don't want to be doing 3 different
yes,
proposals.
but there's been no notice given there.
Right,
There's been no notice and there's been no process, which is why we're having this conversation now.
right.
So let's go have our meeting on Thursday and direct the subcommittee, of which you and I are both participants on, to prepare details that will forward on to council. And it'll be dealt with whenever that happens. But this is to council, like none of this is
And this is
procedurally.
why I'm asking at this meeting, because with vacations, we didn't have our minutes the minutes in our hands. And we couldn't access them, so it was sort of a forgotten piece. So I'm fine with coming to audit and finance. I just wanted to know what process. Normally, a clerk advises the chair of the committee, but we didn't have that. And
The issue is that we don't think that it's a prudent use of our time to have the audit committee struck next week if the only issue is this particular topic. Unless we want to have the meeting anyway and just deal with this. Of which personally, I don't think it's a good use of our time, but that's just one opinion. What do you all think? I personally support deferring the meeting until we have the audited financial statements. And as well as part of that process, we could also hear about the splitting of the terms and conditions as well, or we can accelerate
By
that.
deferring a week.
Yeah.
Which I would absolutely support, but in the meantime, is it possible around the table to give indication of support and principle? Is that possible to do as an official body?
Like today, like from
Yeah.
today's meeting, I mean, I have to say, that's even more strange because it's brand new business.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
notice emotions.
Well intended, but
I
even
think
more
it's fair,
strange.
I think it's fair to say that council's well aware who the participants are, including Jerry Trites and including Daryl and we and Richard, we have a very fulsome active committee and we can be patient and wait for the recommendation. I'm sure.
They're eager to work. So, and we're hoping to have it completed by November, so we've been meeting and advancing in a process, so. So the decision is,
I don't think there is a decision.
Okay.
I think I consider this to be a heads up.
yeah,
And that we are deciding to defer the audit and finance committee by a week.
Well, I mean, it's a separate point. My suggestion, I just wanted to tack it on because this is a great opportunity, was just to say, we don't really have any other business for audit and finance until probably a month following, because our expectations at best for the delivery of the draft 23-24 statements is late October. Like that's where we've talked about now a number of times. The audit will wrap, like they've been here in person. They're scheduled to provide us with statements early October. That'd be for Ashley to look at. You know, I think the audit and finance committee would be late October if we're waiting for the statement.
and I think we need to move faster, our committee wants to move faster than that.
So if you just take it through regular channels as this is new business.
Mhm.
This is effectively a notice of motion, then that at the next regular council meeting. There'll be something down as a report from that committee. I mean, we'd just be skipping on in finance procedurally. Going to council is better than going to policy and strategy, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Are you good with something like that?
That's a good idea.
So then it just gives you your meeting on Thursday to put something in writing so the council
think-
can actually receive it formally at the meeting on the 25th.
I think in the hierarchy of needs, if the audit is completed and ready for review by council or the audit committee, the audit committee in late October, hallelujah. Like, thank you very much. But I think honestly, I would like to have that meeting scheduled at a time where all the council are able to be in the room. So, depending on the deputy mayor's schedule and Councillor Paul from, I'm assuming you'll be back late October.
I may be able to link in.
So it'd be nice to have, so we can organize the audit committee meeting in late October. I'm dancing a jig of happiness and joy. Let's make sure that when we have the audit committee meeting, we can have as much fulsome participation as possible.
And in the meantime, take Suzanne's notice now under new business to be noticed that on the September 25th meeting, the subcommittee will provide a recommendation straight to council. And that gives everybody a way to get something moving ahead.
I can't make a motion unless I make.
Well, you can make a
You wanna
notice.
make
about
it?
it,
Can I
you
make
or
it?
Joe make the
Yeah,
motion on the
yeah.
I'm happy
25th.
to make that motion.
Okay, so notice.
Notice the
Notice,
motion.
happy with,
Okay.
that's good. And that'll.
Yeah, that will suit us.
And then on Thursday, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
And I
And
think this clarifies for, Councilor Carver's point, if anyone's wondering why the subcommittee's recommendations coming straight to council, this conversation and Joe's notice clarify that. I think that it'll be in the minutes of this council meeting saying subcommittee is gonna come straight to council. So I think that should deal with the fact that we're not passing it through the audit. At least from my perspective.
okay,
We've gone on the record, people now know what to expect.
okay, so is there a seconder?
Notice.
Just a
Yeah,
notice,
just a notice.
okay.
But it'll go in a minute.
All right, got all that, clerk?
Good.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for all the confusion, but we do not want to slow down the process of the subcommittee. Yes, Councilor Quan?
So we missed 6.3 for correspondence.
No, we thought we speak in fine. Yeah. Okay, so, are there any questions or comments?
There's one question, not as you're reading it yet, from Ed Helgerson. About 8.1 Heritage Property Hearing. The agenda doesn't contain any information on this item. This is a property owned by the deputy mayor. Did he cast a vote? Isn't that a conflict? There's information in there. It doesn't, the statement of significance doesn't list who the property owner is. And I didn't look to call him, I assumed he didn't vote, it wouldn't have been a recorded vote for him to vote.
Yeah, we
I've
did,
abstained in the past throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
yeah, we didn't declare a conflict, but the fact that he abstained, I mean, I think. I don't think a conflict has to be declared if he's gonna say he's abstaining.
Okay,
That's a good question.
all
I've
right,
always abstained on that question.
Yeah,
okay, so,
and he spoke as the property owner in favor and then abstained from
Yeah.
that.
okay.
For 10 watching.
And 10 watching. Okay, well, thank you all for watching. And we will take a motion to go into closed session. And I thank everyone for their participation and for joining us on YouTube. So I will take a motion to go into closed session for item 12.1 MGA 22(2)A, acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property. And also 12.2 MGA 22(2)E, contract negotiation.
Oh, so move.
So moved by Councillor Carver, second by Councillor Kano. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Councillor Peltoman, you're not voting? Aye, okay. All-
Distract.